Hello, I am Dr. Raquel Daly, and thank you so much for joining us on the Best Life Abroad podcast. Today, we will be speaking with Jen, who most recently lived in Poland, and she's going to share her insights and tell us about her journey to living abroad. She's been abroad 6 years, it'll be 8 years in 2025, so she spent some good time abroad. And Jen, welcome to the Best Life Abroad podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Jen is my homie, my sister, my line sister, my love. So I'm so happy to have her joining us today. And Jen, if you can start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, and even just the idea of moving abroad, like how did it come that you would even entertain the vision of going abroad?
Sure. So first of all, I'm Jen Fodere. I graduated from the United States Military Academy in 2008 with a bachelor's in information technology. And I am actually, I commissioned as an officer in the Army. So I served active duty for 11 and a half years. I'm married to another active duty officer who's currently still serving. I'm in the reserves, although transitioning out. I think this is my last week as a TP, just a 1 week out of the month, 2 weeks a year person. So I'll finally be able to just be, kind of pursue whatever my passion is, fortunately, at this point in time. So for the next 2 years. So traveling comes with being in the military. So obviously, not my first duty station, but my second duty station was in Germany. That's how I met you. And then in between overseas, the Army just kept sending me back to Texas. So it was Texas, Germany, Texas, South Korea, Texas, Poland. I'm in Louisiana for a short period right now, but we'll be going back to South Korea in the summer. So about an average of 2 years per duty station. I only made it a year and a half to Poland, but Sam will be there for 2 years. So yep, that's basically how that happened.
Yay. So it's really cool to hear about your life abroad, because we haven't talked to anyone yet who has like the military piece of being abroad.
Oh, great.
So it's really exciting to talk to you about that today. And so your second station was in Germany, and that started kind of life of abroad. How did you feel about that? Like, how were you in Germany? Were you like, I'm over being abroad. I'm kind of ready to go back. What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
It was just different. There were some things that were just convenient that I kind of missed. So, obviously being in the United States, you kind of get used to going to Walmart whenever, it's open 24 hours and, you know, you don't have to kind of go around gas or worry about, where you purchase certain things from and whether it's tax exempt or not. And even Germany had a great expat community. So it's not, and most people there spoke English. So I think, or at least could understand you. So, and I lived in Wiesbaden primarily, which I know is a lot different than living where you used to live.
You're not right.
So
I was in the German piece.
yes, and I totally understand that. So I think for the most part, I would say my experience when I was in Germany wasn't any different than living in America because I was close to a military base.
Mm-hmm.
Poland was where I was, I mean, just like you were in the thick in Germany, I was in the thick in Poland.
Uh-huh.
So where we lived was Szczecin. And that took me about a year to pronounce correctly. I don't know how to do that. So we lived in Szczecin, which is about 15 minutes away from the German border, and not a whole lot of people spoke English. Definitely had to be immersed in the culture there, and we ended up having really, really good neighbors. A good support system there in terms of the other U.S. families that were there and still are there. And then not a whole lot of I didn't really get into the expat community there that much, but did still had some people there that you could connect to. But definitely like grocery shopping was an adventure learning Polish is an adventure. Definitely harder than learning German. So, but I enjoyed my time in Germany. I didn't travel that much the first time, but this time around we did travel quite a lot. So we sent our kids back in the summer because my the operational tempo of my job kind of peaked. I was just gone all the time and my husband was just gone all the time. So it was just easier to send them back for the summer. So that was really sad, but we also traveled a lot. So I feel like it kind of evened everything out. So we went to Paris, we went to Spain, we went to Czech Republic, we went to Krakow, different other places in Poland, and of course Germany, but it was like Germany was kind of played out because I was there for 2.5 years before. So and even now, like Sam plans on still traveling some of the region while he's there by himself until it's time for us to move. So a lot of travel opportunity.
Yeah, I love it. That's amazing. And you mentioned like kind of the differences language wise of the need to speak the language in Germany versus Poland. Do you feel like that impacted your experience at all? And if so, how?
It did at first. And even before we moved to Poland, I lived in Germany. How different can it be? It's different. And then, just the intimidation of, well, I'm not going to be able to read the signs and everything. It's like, well, you lived in Korea and you couldn't read any of those signs and they were in Hangul, but you were comfortable. So I think I had some pretty big precursors going into Poland that I feel like if I did not have those things, I think the learning curve would have been a lot steeper. So I was fortunate to have those experiences before we left, but hardly anyone there speaks English, even though some of, I think similar to most of the other European countries, they learn English now, but Poland's history is so wow that that you're like, wow, I had no idea. So first of all, I had no idea about Central or Eastern Europe or anything in the Baltics, any country in the Baltics. In terms of geography, Slavic language, anything else like that. I had zero clue. So it took me a while just living there and then just referencing the countries because my husband works for NATO. So we have a very diverse population on the staff. And I was able to talk to some of the wives from some of those countries, and that was a unique experience. So and it kind of put into perspective, like, oh, wow, don't be that American. At least look at a map first. At least try to attempt to say hello, just basic stuff. And I mean, just like any person traveling abroad, you just get really good at menu language. So you know what beef, chicken, and pork is. And then grocery shopping languages, you kind of know, you pick up. You might not be able to pronounce it, but you can at least point and ask. But the differences in Germany is you could probably point and try to pronounce it in German, and then they'll just talk English to you, or they'll at least understand what it is that you're trying to say. Well, it just depends on where you are, but pointing and saying the word doesn't get you as far as it has usually any other place that I've been.
Interesting. Yeah. And so you started out abroad by yourself or as a single lady, and then a married lady with children. So what was it like being there like by yourself versus like things you have to consider or like lifestyle differences being there like with your family?
Man, so when you're by yourself, obviously it's whatever you want to do. It was like, I think I'm just going to walk 2 miles to my favorite restaurant because I live close to downtown, or I think I'm just going to hop on a train station, go to the train and go somewhere, right? Even though we both know we weren't doing a whole lot of traveling around that time. We were just, So when you're married, it's like, oh, let's go together. So South Korea, which was my second overseas assignment, obviously, like I had me and Sam were married before Joe was born.
Mm-hmm.
And just traveling around, we had to deconflict schedules, but it's like, hey, it was still kind of on a whim, but then you had to take turns on, whose turn it was to dominate the space, and then or to pick the location. And then obviously when you have kids, it's like, I don't know if I got the energy to do it. So we didn't travel a whole lot as a family in Poland. Especially, I think we took the kids to Disneyland Paris.
Oh, yay.
And they seemed to enjoy that, but they were also still a little small. So I think the only one of the kids that was able to ride all the rides was Josephine. Even then, she was still not tall enough to ride all the rides. So it was still we didn't travel around as much. It's just a lot. So when Sammy was 2 when we got there, they had just turned 2 and 4 when we got there. So Sammy was still trying to potty train. And so I would stick to little things around the local community that we're part of. So like they had jump parks there, like trampoline parks and indoor cafes.
Oh.
Hands down, I've never seen so many cafes with indoor playgrounds in them.
Wow.
And I feel like we don't have enough of them in America.
Agreed. I agree.
There was one that we would frequent all the time, and it was entirely glass, so you could see all sides. And then they have a camera in the corner, so you could sit there, sip your coffee, and they are very much contained. There's a ball pit, there's a slide, there's all kinds of other stuff. And
wow.
You kind of watch them play as you kind of are off to the side.
Wow. Talk about mental health.
Oh, yes.
We need those for our maternal mental health. But and a camera? No, yeah, I feel that for sure. Because like thinking about our time in Belgium when we had CJ, it was like even from going from CJ to CJ and Alexia is like, whoa. Because CJ, he was a baby. You just throw him in that carrier and we are good.
Done.
Alexia, she's a little more opinionated. And so I'm like, even just thinking of traveling with her is overwhelming. So
it makes you want to stay at home.
It makes you want to we'll just watch a family movie. How's that? Yes. Yeah. Totally changed the dynamic.
Yeah. So my daughter went to international school and my son went to Polish daycare. So with the international schools, they used the British structure. And I mean, that particular school we sent her to was really good with smaller kids. So we felt comfortable going there, and they spoke English the entire time. And but my son's daycare, they were really, really good. But I think the language barrier still kind of put them behind in terms of like potty training and speech. So I felt like it was good to send him back here for school, just so he could. He's definitely improved leaps and bounds, and we still have some work to do on him, but he's doing really well. And then the healthcare system there, I think it's affordable, but they don't look at pain the same. So pain management and bedside manner is a little worse, or a little. It's not what an American would want, I think, because I think most of the U.S. families have the complaint that they're supposed to speak English, they don't speak English, and I'm just trying to get this refilled, and some of that issue is also working within the TRICARE system as well. So there's no TRICARE there, and where we were living, there was no hospital or any like a military facility or hospital or anything like that. So we had to call a number, which was in England, and then they would have us pick a place to go, which the translators that worked at the NATO base were able to recommend a couple, so we would go there, and you know, you go to the appointment, you fill out the forms, and then you submit it back to the insurance company. But like
Oh,
the
wow.
dental care, they're not very they're kind of rough, but they have the best dental care apparently in Europe. So a lot of people
Wow.
go to Poland for dental care.
Oh, wow.
Cosmetic surgery, they have a lot of cosmetic surgery there too. This is affordable.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh well, if I get anything done, this is the place to do it, I guess. So, but
Wow.
yeah, like the kids going to school and everybody going to school, and then you know just the the highs and buys of it all was a lot.
Yeah, that's a big transition with kids for sure. For
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. And so, do you have any like things that you're like, man, I wish I would have done this differently? Like for me, I think one thing that we always say is like, oh, I wish that we would have like one place we never ever hit was Greece. And so still on the bucket list, of course. I mean, not even bucket, still on, we're gonna do this thing. But like I wish that we would have taken advantage of that from Belgium because it's so close.
Mhm.
Are there any things that you're like, man, I wish I would have done these things differently or traveled more pre-babies, things like that?
So Greece is awesome. Definitely go to Greece. I think that we actually never went to Amsterdam, and I think it's
Mm.
pronounced Gdansk. I can't remember, but we never went to Gdansk. And I was like, but it's only 3 hours. But it's like, yeah, it's 3 hours. No, I think it's more like three. It's between 3 and 6. I can't remember.
Oh, that is a huge difference.
Yeah. But I'm like, and if you travel for 3 hours, if it's more than 3 hours, and it's like, I gotta,
Yeah.
so you end up just staying at home. That might have been one of those, I think I'm gonna pass.
Yeah.
So I think just waiting too long to go in and around Poland. So there's a place in Poland that you know they're big on Polish pottery, and I
Mhm.
never got any Polish pottery while I was there. I knew it. I drove by that place all the time for work, but I just never got out of the car and was like, all right, I'm gonna go buy a
Mhm.
set. You know, it's like, what do I need pottery for?
Yeah.
At the time, it didn't seem important because any military base that I would go to, they would sell Polish pottery or whatever in the PX.
Mhm.
That's the post exchange, the fancy place
Mhm.
that you actually need.
Mhm.
Fancy is a loose term. So, but then it just seemed like they weren't selling them anymore. And now I'm like, oh, well, I could have went and gone. And there's whole pottery parades and stuff like that. But they still do. I mean, Poland still does the Christmas markets and everything else. We never did that as a family. And I think the first year we were there, I think they canceled everything because of COVID. So, and then this year would have been the first year we would have done it as a family, which obviously we couldn't do because we were geographically dispersed and I was on my way out anyway. So,
Mhm.
but I wish I would have taken the extra time to go to the other places in Poland. I never got to walk around Warsaw, and I did go to Krakow, and that was legitimately one of the, you would need probably 2 or 3 days just to kind of walk around and explore, and even longer if you actually like to walk in the castles and stuff like that. And there's so many castles in Poland. Yeah. And then we took so many trips to Berlin. It was just, that was actually nice. So I don't feel, the countries that we visited were countries that we wanted to visit.
Mhm.
We could have done a Euro cross country trip in the summer if we were not as busy as we were. Because that would have been cool. My parents got married in Denmark, so it would have been cool to go to Denmark before we left. Just to, apparently I was there when they got married. And that would have been cool to go just to check it out, but we didn't, we never got around to that part.
I understand that for sure. I'm like, it seems like when you're there, the touristy things are like, that's just touristy. Even like now, my parents have like an Antwerp t-shirt. I'm like, I don't have an Antwerp t-shirt. I want to Antwerp. I have nothing. Like none of the touristy anythings. So yeah, I understand that for sure. And one thing I wanted to touch on with you too was just talking about like some of those day-to-day differences between like the US and living abroad. Can you touch on some of those?
Sure. So just specific to Poland or just living abroad?
Whatever you'd like to touch
Whatever.
on.
Okay. So I think one of the biggest things that struck me as, oh man, that's different, when I was in Poland was when you go grocery shopping and you go to the produce and you have to weigh certain specific stores, but most of them, you have to weigh the produce before you get to the line.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, the implied task there is that you actually know you got to read, or at least there was a lot of Google Translate type stuff going on. And
To like know what the food is, to say how much it weighs. Yes.
and it prints the sticker out and then you put it on the bag, and then there's been a lot of abandoned produce at the checkout line because I either picked the wrong thing or I forgot to weigh it. And I could tell in Polish they're trying to tell me, but they didn't understand English for me to be like, that's okay. I don't want it anymore. So abandoning it is them like giving up on the fact. Some of them just give unsolicited help, and it's like, you're right, that's helpful. But if I wanted to do that, I would have did it myself. Or if I knew how to do it, I would have done it myself. But it was like, isn't this better? Why would you do that if you know you could, do this a different way? It's supposed to help you. It's like, because I don't want to do it. So I think that just the bills also, so the utilities, I only get a bill every other month. And that was different because it kind of got hard for me to you sit down, you do your monthly bills, and it's like, okay, well, I got a lot in my account this month. Am I missing a bill? It's like, no, you're not. It's just not time to bill you this month. And then you kind of, for me, I can get mixed up pretty easy, especially if you're like, oh, because they'll email you, very good on technology and contactless payments, and like Blick payments are, that's convenient. You go to your little banking app, you get a Blick code, and then with that Blick code, you could go to the ATM. Like, you don't really need a card anymore. So like just internal payments, it's almost like having Venmo and Cash App and stuff in Poland, except it's tied directly to your bank account.
Okay.
So I think that by itself was convenient, man. Oh, and wintertime. So they take care of the roads, like city roads, but if you live on a road that's not on, that the city or whatever community you're part of, like that's the neighborhood's job to clear that.
The neighborhood?
Yeah. So the street that we lived on, it wasn't part of the main street. So snow would come. They don't really salt. They don't overly prepare for salting the roads and paving them ahead of time. So if it does snow, you could easily lose half a day because the streets aren't clear, and they don't really put down a whole lot of salt. So in the morning, obviously you have to take care of your sidewalk, your part, but the snow plow will not come into your neighborhood. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna stay here then until I feel safe to drive.
But otherwise it would be like everybody would have to get together to go shovel.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, if your neighborhood works like that, right? So, and the reason why I hesitate on answering that question is because I don't know how every other neighborhood, how everybody's street, but the street that we lived on, we had a whole Facebook page dedicated to our street. So we could communicate and ask, hey, is everybody's lights on, or is anybody else having this issue, and stuff like that. Chimneys, they would share information and resources. So I'm so positive that if like, okay, it's time to come out and shovel the snow, then we would just be out shoveling the snow with the neighbors because
Oh
that's the
my
type of
goodness.
community they
Wow.
built. So
That's really cool though.
it is cool. And my neighbors were awesome. They have two daughters. My landlady,
Mhm.
her husband, all of them grew up in Stettin. So they, they knew where to find things, and they're all hustlers by nature. So they all have little things that they do. They all work and go through things, and they participate in the community. And my landlord lady's husband actually won the race around Poland race, and now
What?
he's eligible for the race around America. So right now he's trying to raise money to come to America to do the race.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I was like, he got radio interviews, and every time he come by the
Wow.
house, I'm like, oh yeah, my famous yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
like I follow him on Instagram. He really does gets the miles in on his bike. Rain, shine, snow, he's out there. Yeah, and he has people that ride with him too. So that's pretty cool. So it was nice to have a family
Yeah.
unit. Yeah, and just kind of go through. I think really shopping was just the biggest thing was my issue because I was spoiled always being in Germany and in South Korea because we were close to a military base, so I didn't have to go out on the economy to go get things if I didn't have to, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was hard. And then not everything is in one place. So one store might have better vegetables, one store might have better meat selection. So to go grocery shopping if you did it all in one day, it could take all day.
Mm-mm.
And some of the big grocery stores, they look like they're inside of a mall. So when you walk in, there's like all these different little department stores like Orsay and suit stores and the dry cleaners. And then eventually you get to the supermarket and it's like,
Oh wow.
oh, yeah. And one of the malls in downtown Stettin, the supermarket is actually on the second floor. And it's like, okay, this is different. Yeah. And then some of their mannerisms are a little hard. So they walk around, they usually have very stoic faces. So they don't like look at you and smile. They might like nod their head at you and say Dzień dobry and then just keep walking, or they might not say anything and it's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one thing. It's like I didn't realize how much you smile when you're in an unfamiliar place because you're trying to be like, hi, I'm friendly. And they're like, we don't care. I got someplace to be, I got stuff to do, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's so interesting. It's so cool to just hear about the differences even from like country to country,
Mhm.
and how like those times abroad prepared you for your third country abroad.
Yeah.
Without that, it would have been a very different experience. That's really cool. So we have a few more minutes. Are there any final thoughts that you have that you'd like to share about your journey to living
So
abroad?
yeah, Poland is cheap and you should really go. The exchange rate is like 4 to 1.
What?
Yeah, it's cheap. It's
What?
and yeah. So it's like the hardest part is just getting there, but then you get there and it's like, oh, okay. It's super. So
Wow.
don't let I think people think of Poland and it's like, ew, Poland. I was like, no, Poland is really nice. Go in the spring and the summer, it's really nice.
Wow. It's cool too. Like, I think one thing that's really amazing about living abroad, especially when you are not close to other Americans, like a
Yeah.
large American population, is how quickly you can really build community with the local community. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes people are like, oh, you're kind of on your own, but you really can. Like our where we lived in Germany, we call them our German family. Like
Mhm.
we FaceTime them, we talk to them through WhatsApp. I send them videos because now CJ's in German school. So like, I send them videos of him singing songs and doing whatever. But it's amazing how you can like really build community in a completely different country where y'all are like, I don't know what you are saying. But then by like month 3, it's like, hey,
Yeah, you could at
hey,
least say
you have some
hello
sugar?
when you buy
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's like, hey, I need some assistance. And they're like,
Yeah.
I come help you. Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised at how it was a hard adaptation, but I was surprised at how well I adapted. So definitely
Mhm.
it's like, oh, you talk about Poland? Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yes, that's so cool. Yay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was so great to hear about your journey abroad, your time in Poland, and your other countries that you've been to, hearing that military perspective, because we haven't touched on that before. So if any of you are interested in moving abroad and need some help taking that leap, I am here to support you on your personal journey. Head to my website at www.yourbestlifeabroad.com for information on how to get started. So thanks again for joining us today. And there is no time like the present to live your best life abroad.